Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk, a Tuesday live stream where I answer all of the questions that come in. The goal of this live stream is to answer your questions on reaching financial freedom, making work optional, investing in real estate. Uh, if you like, I can give some really bad relationship advice. But if I was starting today in 2024, how would I start investing? What would I invest in? How would I reach financial freedom? How would I make it optional? Because almost every time I make a video, not every time, because the less a man makes declarative statements, the less apt he is to look foolish in retrospect. I will say almost every time that I make a video talking about financial freedom, retiring early, how I did it, how you can do it, how other people are doing it. There is somebody in the comments, a very specific type of person. And the knee-jerk reaction in me is to go, what a whiny little complainer. But then the human in me goes, this is a person in pain. Life sucks. Life is challenging. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people don't have money for an emergency. Uh, Not even paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people are living and going into debt on credit. Right? And every month gets worse, and it's a spiraling world of chaos and confusion that just the future looks really bad. And they are on YouTube and they're looking at a financial channel on how do you make your life better, and they feel frustrated, so they reach out with a comment that says, it's impossible to do that now. It's impossible to do it then. It's impossible to do if anybody has all these challenges. And so that knee-jerk reaction is to go, quit your bitching. But the real reaction that does take a few minutes to kick in is, how can I help this person? Because there is a way to change their mind. I've been that person. I've been the person that says, I'm going to work until I die. Or when I was upside down on my house after the housing crash and my first tenant was really bad because I was trying to rent it out and things went so bad I couldn't even give the house away, that I was saying things to people like, why would you ever have a mortgage? This is the dumbest thing ever. I'm trapped at this house. So I've been in that position. And because at some point, I don't even know who it was, but people had conversations with me and said, maybe there's another way. Maybe it's possible to make changes. And I'm going to use this very specific example of a friend of mine who reached out recently. Now, I'm actually going to name him, and I don't know too many details because while we've been friends a long time, we haven't known each other recently. This is somebody, when I owned a furniture delivery company, Jeremiah worked for me. He was right, I want to say out of high school. Not sure if he finished high school at the time, right? He was just a young, strong, hardworking guy. And he went to work for me with the furniture company, and I taught him as much as I could because we spent a lot of time in the truck together, delivering to customers. What was customer service like? How do you improve somebody else's experience so your day goes better? And I taught him things like NLP and mirroring, and he didn't know that these were the things I was teaching him. He just thought I was teaching him how to work. He reached out twice recently. The first time he reached out, he called to complain. He said, I've spent my life telling everybody my first boss was this grizzled old Marine, and he taught me how to work, and he gave me a work ethic. And so everywhere Jeremiah's worked, he's done his best effort, right? If somebody's paying you to be there, you go all in and you take your job seriously. So he usually advanced to management roles. He usually got promotions. He would move on to bigger and better jobs, right? So he's had a very successful working career. But he says, I don't have any friends. There's all the people I work with. I don't know if he said all, but he said most of the people I work with just show up for the paycheck. They just hang out and get their pay. They do the minimum amount. So when I'm trying to work, it kind of makes them look bad, and I don't really have any friends. So he was complimenting me on teaching him how to have a good work ethic, but then he was kind of complaining that, yeah, most people where I worked didn't like me either. Especially when I started getting demoted. I got demoted all the way down to the president of the last company I worked at. And I would say that while my theory was the reversed tree theory, where I worked for everybody, and then the managers worked for the staff, and then the staff worked for the customer, right? So it's an upside down uh, order of operations on management. So he reached out again recently and he said, well, I'm working. He's 40. He's got kids. He's been with the same woman that he's crazy about for like 19 years, right? He's got a great life going, but he says he's got a CDL. He's delivering for a company. And he says, should I even invest in real estate? And there are people out there like Jeremiah. They're smart, hardworking, and getting a little longer in the tooth, right? He's 40 now. He's no longer that 18-year-old that worked for me a billion years ago. And I said, so how much do you have saved? And he says, well, I've got some in my 401k. And he said a very special thing. He said, but I've used it before, which is very common. Running a company and having a lot of people tap into our retirement accounts to solve a rent problem, divorce problem, new kid problem, whatever the issue was. I don't know that we had anybody retire and use their 401k after 59 and a half, not to my knowledge. So I'm going to be meeting with Jeremiah, and I hope to make a video series called Freeing Jeremiah. And it'll actually be a great chance for me to hang out with somebody that I considered a close friend when we were working together, but then life took us in separate directions. And I want to see if I can kind of bring him around to thinking it's possible. Because what do you hear in the comments and what do you see with the Crash Bros going? You can't start now because we have inflation, we have high rates, we have high home prices, right? So I got laid off from law enforcement in 2008 because when there's a recession, you don't need law enforcement anymore, and we don't, nobody commits crimes. So I got laid off. And around 2011, I started saving and decided I wanted to make my own pension. And so about a little after end of 2013, I bought my first duplex. Between 2011 and 2013, we saw about, no kidding, 30% home appreciation. Because we were coming out of the crash. And at that point, everybody was screaming double dip crash. The crash was going to happen again. Well, from 2020 to 2024, we've seen a little bit over 30% home appreciation. So it's really hard to buy now because prices are high. Well, it was really hard to buy then. Prices were high. And I was making $17 an hour as a CDL driver. And well, actually, at that point, it was a CDL instructor. So if you're starting right now, $17 an hour would be really rough. Hopefully, you're making more than that. Fast food restaurants are paying $20 an hour in some areas. So people should be making more than that. When I purchased places in 2018, interest rates were above 6%. We see interest rates now above 6%. Nobody can buy because we have inflation, we have high prices and high interest rates. So it's very hard and challenging to start now. So in 2011, when I went to start, I would say it's absolutely impossible. Nobody can do it now. There's a crash coming. Well, what are we hearing now? For a decade, there's a crash coming. So Jeremiah is in the same kind of position. Higher prices than what we had a few years ago. High interest rates, strong inflation. He makes a lot more than I did. And everyone's saying there's a crash coming. My biggest fear for Jeremiah is that he has one source of income. What if something happens and he can no longer drive, loses his med card? The AI virtual robots start driving all the trucks. Whatever, go as far as you want in La La Land of thinking what can happen to where he loses his source of income. And he's got to change fields. Kind of like the coders who've spent the last 15 years going, only humans can code. It's the only way it's going to go. And we're probably 10 to 15 years away from AI doing that. So no job is safe. No one single source of income is safe. If we have a recession, people are going to get laid off. So even if you don't get replaced by AI, there's a way where we have downsizing, corporate restructuring, and your job goes away. My fear is that one source of income. So I want to get him to start. How would you start in 2024? So I'm going to take me as an example, thinking Jeremiah is 40. I was 40 when I started. I had young kids. He's got kids. He's making more money than I was. And you would go, okay, because I'm going to start now. How do I do this? You do not buy a rental. That's the hardest part to get across. So many people, when they think, okay, how would I start now? They just want to go, okay, I'm going to look on the MLS. I'm going to find a property. I'm going to make down payment. I'll own a rental. If I'm starting right now, that means something changed in my life. I'm not bankable. I don't have the down payment, the closing costs, the money for immediate repairs or reserves that the lenders are going to require. You just don't have any of that. You're starting now. So of course it seems impossible. Of course it seems challenging. And of course we go, it's harder now than ever. So from 2011 to 2013, what did I do? I worked. I worked overtime. I played World of Warcraft and sold things online as a side hustle to help earn more money. I saved. So as I increased my income, I didn't increase my expenses. I avoided life creep. So today, Jeremiah, 2024, keep working, all the overtime, whatever your side hustle is, I know that you're into flipping things, right? And I actually want to make some content on stuff like couch flipping, right? And getting started with smaller things in real estate, but whatever you can do as a side hustle to increase your income, but don't increase your expenses. There's a lot of things you can do with your kids that don't take spending money or as much money as people do. So I'm going to rent a place in 2024 and 2025 for at least 2 years. I'm going to be saving for those 2 years. And people say, well, home prices are escalating so much, it's going to be real hard to keep up with it. Well, yeah, if you're going to be putting down 20 or 25%, it'd be almost impossible. Most people's wages don't increase that much. Your ability to save isn't that high. So you take the 2 years to save 3% down payment on a property, 3%. So if you want to buy $1 million house, you need to save $30,000 in those 2 years. Probably going to be a challenge to do that. So maybe you're looking at a $500,000 house or a $400,000 house. Or you get a little bit further out in the boonies, like Yelm, Washington, and you buy that $150,000 house. House with an ADU. Use a conventional loan. So you have an instant rental with your first house hack. You have 2 years in whatever industry you landed on your feet with to start making money after you whatever changed because you're starting in 2024. We're starting at zero. Jeremiah is not even doing that. He's already been driving. He's already got the job. He's already got the credit score. He's already got the income. He's already got all that going on. I'm saying if we started now, our first action that we take when it comes to buying assets would be 2 years from now. Now, there is stocks where you're going to plan for decades, right? You're going to do the Joe Kuhn method where it takes 30 years of investing, smart stuff, start working early 20s, retire early 50s. I totally get it. That's not Jeremiah. Jeremiah's 40 like I was. I want to give him a 10-year horizon, which he was shocked when I said we can do that. He was thinking 15, so he wants to retire by 55. I say he can even beat me. I retired at 52. He can retire at 50. So in 2 years, he's going to buy that first property. That's the hardest part to understand about starting in 2024. You don't just go buy something. He's got to pick a market. He's got to study that market. He's got to figure out if the job that he has is the one that he wants in 2 years. Is there another driving job that pays more, is in a better location? Or is there a remote job that he can do so he can use geo arbitrage or buy a place where the properties are actually affordable compared to what he's making? Housing is as affordable now as it was in 2000. It's 24 years later. Housing is almost exactly the same amount of money. Just not where you want to live. Everybody wants a walkability score. My first house I bought for $100,000, $98,000, 104 with closing costs wrapped in. I bought it in Yelm, Washington before it was even Yelm, Washington. It was 45 minutes to the closest store, 45 minutes to the closest movie theater. Find a place where it's 45 minutes to the closest store and you're going to find a house for $100,000. But you want to be able to walk to restaurants. You want to be able to go to a movie theater that's less than 5 minutes away. Housing is not affordable where people want to live. So where is Jeremiah willing to sacrifice to move to? Ironically, tends to be where the better school districts are. 2 years, saving, increasing your income at work. Is it a promotion? Is it changing companies? Right? There are companies that pay more. Now he really likes his job. He probably doesn't want to change. But would you? So now in 2 years, you buy that house hack, and now he's been renting for 2 years. In 2 years, when you buy that house with an ADU, I would do 5% down, buy a duplex, but 5% might take longer to save. Depends on how much you make and how much you can reduce your expenses. So you buy that duplex in 2 years. That's how you start in 2024. You make a plan to buy your first property 2 years from now. No one knows what interest rates are going to be. No one can predict accurately what home prices are going to do. But I know that even if home prices doubled, a 3% down payment is attainable. Do I see home prices doubling? No. We saw 30% increase from 2011 to 2013, 30% plus increase from 2021 to 2024, right? So it's possible that we have massive increases like that, but usually it's 5 or 6%. So in 2 years, 10 to 15% more on the price of the home doesn't increase your down payment as much as you think. Remember, to go to $1 million, it was only $30,000 down. So these 2 years to buy the house hack. And then it's probably going to be another 2 years before you do anything else. Continue to work, continue to increase your income, continue to save down payments. Your next purchase, if you're like me, might be an investment property. It might be another house hack because you have to live in that first place for at least a year. Is Jeremiah willing to set himself free at 50 by moving a couple of times? And actually, I had a conversation with my brother the other day, and he said, I had an opportunity to buy a duplex. for $100,000 in an area where I paid $300,000 for a duplex, and now they're worth about $650,000. He says, I could have bought one here for $100,000. And this is the words that came out of his mouth, and he was serious. I didn't buy it because I couldn't imagine people wanting to live next to other people. He's never heard of an apartment his entire life. He's never lived in a trailer park. He's never lived anywhere where people live next to each other. And he actually owns rentals and says things like people will rent anything. So yeah, buy a house with an AD or a duplex. House hack it for a year or two. In 2 years, if you have to, because you have to save the down payment for an owner-occupied property, you rinse and repeat. So that 2 years after that, so we're at 6 years now. So it's starting in 2024. We save for 2 years. 2026, we buy a property. 2028, we hunt for the next property, not because we couldn't find the deals, right? There's quicker methods. You can do subject to, you can do seller financing, you can do all these creative strategies that are out there, but I'm talking about how I would do it. I'd be working full time. Jeremiah's got kids to take care of. I wouldn't be learning how do I talk to people to get a seller to sell me their property, and how do I get no interest on that? How do I negotiate the best deal? I'd be looking on the MLS. I have an agent with auto searches set up. I'd just be finding them the traditional way, which still works. All of my properties are from the MLS, all with conventional lending. I've never done creative financing. I've never done seller financing or subject to or taking a wrap or any of those words that I don't even want to learn how they work. Slow and boring. Right? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. What can you do smoothly? You can find properties on the MLS that you can house hack. You might have to expand your market out as remote work changes the landscape a little bit. You might have to look in a new market. What are you willing to do? Most people aren't even willing to house hack. They'll have roommates when they're renting. It's like people say, I'm absolutely totally fine with people helping me pay someone else's mortgage, but don't you dare help me pay mine. So at 2 years, we buy our first house hack, 2 years, another one, house hack or rental, 2 years, another. So you're 6 years into this now. But what does Jeremiah have 6 years from now? So in 2024, we go to 2026, he has a rental, house hack. 2028, he has another property. 2030, he has another property. So he's done 3 things in 6 years. But he doesn't have 3 rentals at 6 years. What he has is 3 properties at 6 years, one of them with 4 years of rent appreciation, principal pay down, all the tax benefits, opportunities to refinance at better interest rates if they pop up. Not a requirement, but a good thing to watch out for. He has another property with 2 years of rent increases. He's house hacking and reduces his cost of living. Now, the income snowball starts to kick in, but you see this took till 2030 for this to make sense. So all of and I won't call them whiny little complainers. I'm going to call them the people that are in pain, that I'm trying to get to, that I understand life sucks and it's hard. By 2030, you can do things that change your life. You're not going to do them in 2024 or 2025 or 2026. This snowball is slow and it's hard to get rolling, right? It's hard to steer a parked car. But you get that going. Now, by 2030, this is where you have some options, and this is where the hard part comes in. As you get to year 8, and you start having 6 years of rental appreciation, principal pay down, 4 years and 2 years on each one of these properties, you're going to start making more money off your properties than you're making at your job. Because those annual cost of living raises and the potential change of increase by changing companies doesn't come close to comparing to what happens with rents over time. Look up any chart. Rents from 1980 till now. Yes, they can stay flat, but they have never, since 1940 when we started tracking the data, gone down, right? In 2009, Class A went down. Yeah, so I don't invest in Class A. I invest in Class B or C, where there's more demand in economic stressful times. When you have a recession, it's harder to buy a house. So what happens? More people become renters. When more people are renters, what happens? More demand on a limited supply causes price to go up. Very simple economics. The hard part at year 8. So now we're in 2032. Jeremiah, in 2032, rewatch this video. This is when you have to resist the urge to get the syndrome. I'm going to call it a syndrome. Don't know if psychologists would do that, but the I've earned it syndrome. Don't let it do it. It'll kick you in the teeth. At 8 years, you don't go, I've been working for 8 years. I haven't taken vacations. I haven't done all these things. I've been moving from house to house. I've put sweat equity into every one of my properties. I've traded my weekends for a decade so that I can have decades that are all weekends. It's probably a way to say that where it actually sounds good. Those last 2 years from 8 to 10, That's when the magic happens. That's when you continue to work and make money. You continue to work the overtime. You have the cash flow from your assets and you funnel them together and you add a couple of more assets in that last 2 years where things go fast. You're probably going to get more than one property every 2 years. Now, at the 10-year mark, you've avoided the 2 years of I've earned it. At the 10-year mark, you have the choice of, do I continue to work? Do I walk away from this? Do I do like Dion and travel the world and scuba dive everywhere? Because now your kids are going to be getting a bit older. And then you get some choices. Now you have 10 years of doing this hard work and putting in time, energy, and effort that have sucked. But you can choose. Is your goal, Jeremiah, generational wealth? Do you put your kids' lives first above your own? Yes, it's your sacred duty to make sure half of them make it to 18. But after that, you have some choices. I don't want to create generational wealth. I think that actually takes away motivation and drive from my kids. I want them to know that they can do things like earn it on their own and enjoy life, not be given something that turns them into whiny little complainers. See, I can call my kids that, but not the people in the comments. I think something's wrong with me. So, do you create generational wealth? Or do you do the most important thing, Jeremiah, that I'm doing? The most important thing we can do for our kids is to make sure we take care of our own finances so that when we're too old to work, we don't become a financial burden to them. So right now, Jeremiah, you're driving. You're strong. You're still strong. One of the strongest guys I've ever known as far as when it comes to work. But will you be that way when you're 70? When you've worked these hard jobs all these years? Will your body be anything like it was? Do you want your kids to have to take care of you? Or do you want to do these investing? Because when you ask that question, should I even invest in rentals? It's not for you. It's not so that your kids will inherit anything. It's so that your kids won't have to take care of you. Because if your kids are anything like mine, I saw how they took care of pets. I want a paid professional. I want somebody that knows what they're doing to earn money, taking care of me when I can't do it anymore. That's going to happen because I have assets, assets that benefit from inflation. Do you want freedom? Do you want to be a philanthropist? Do you want to take your money and help a nonprofit? Do you want to make donations? None of that happens. And this is a cold, hard truth that I'm about to say that people don't like to hear. And every time I say it, somebody's going to attack me. So feel free, because I got pretty thick skin. It is almost impossible to be generous when you're poor. Oh, I know. Everybody's like, oh, the sacrifice of the poor person only has a little bit to give. So they're more generous when they give a little bit. The person who's receiving, do you think they're happy that they got a little bit? Or do they think they're happy they ran into somebody that has a lot, that shared a lot? The more time, energy, and effort you put into becoming wealthy, the more generous you can be. Yes, there are generous poor people, but it's almost impossible to be really generous when you have nothing to be generous with. You say, well, I'll be generous with my time. When you're poor, you're working so you can eat, right? Because here's the difference between poor, middle class, and wealthy. Poor people work for stuff. You want better stuff, you do more work. The middle class works for credit. You want a big house, you want a nice car. You want it on credit, so you get a good credit score. Wealthy people understand the purpose of money is to make more money. And that's what I want you to do, Jeremiah. I want you to take, you work in your job, and you can substitute anybody listening as to my friend Jeremiah. Take your job, earn more than you spend, take the difference and invest it so that over time, because none of this happens in a year or two. This took a decade for me to walk my friend through. This is how you retire by the time you turn 50, if you're not starting until you're 40, right? If you're younger, yeah, there's more options. You can do more risky things. You can learn crypto. You can study stocks. You have time for compound interest to do its thing. I didn't start until 40, just like Jeremiah is doing. So this was one of our best options to give us a 10-year horizon. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I'm not trying to do anything quick. It's at that 10-year mark of having a property for 8 years, a property for 6 years, 4 years, 2 years. And yeah, it'll probably go faster and he'll probably do better than that. He's making more money than me. There's a thing called YouTube University now that you can start with that I didn't have the first 5 years I was investing. You can point out all the flaws with what I'm talking about. Or I live in an expensive area, so you can't do it here. Wherever you live that's more high cost of living, the more important house hacking is, right? If you live in San Francisco and you can save $4,000 a month by changing your living conditions, it's going to help you a lot more than living in Gary, Indiana and saving $800 a month by living for free. So yeah, there is a reason. You can find all of the reasons not to do this. Why do you think the Crash Bros videos get 300,000 views? And a video on how do I start investing in 2024 will get 1,000 views by the end of the week. 1,000. That's why I'm entertained when there's questions of, well, what if everybody became a landlord? Have you met people? This takes effort. We call it passive income because that's how the IRS categorizes it. Owning real estate and owning rentals is very close to passive. Yes, it's frustrating when you have a tenant turnover and you need to coordinate some repairs or send a few text messages or emails when you have an appliance break and you have to have it delivered and an old one hauled away, right? There's some things like that, which is nothing like working 50 to 60 hours at a job for a paycheck. But buying this, that 10-year journey I took Jeremiah through, that's not passive, right? The first 2 years where he hasn't even bought a property, he's learning a market. He's setting up his auto searches. He's working on his credit score. He's working in an industry to make himself bankable. He's working overtime. He's trying for promotions. He's changing companies. He's looking at geo arbitrage to look at the better place to live. All of those things that he's doing had almost nothing to do with investing in real estate, to buying the next rental, to making offers and negotiating. But he has to learn all that within the first 2 years. That's what I'm here for. Every one of my videos, every one of my members' classes, every one of my classroom videos, everything that we're doing is in those first 2 years when you're starting to get you ready so that when you buy that first one and you become the Josh and Mary who buy their first duplex and now they're house hacking and they've got the other unit rented out and they're sitting there going, okay, coming up on a year, I could start looking for my next one. How do I do this? It's a long, slow process that's absolutely worth it because that decade from 40 to 50 is going to happen for Jeremiah no matter what. When he's 50, do I want to sit back and go, I at least didn't try to make sure he didn't just have one income? But that's the biggest fear I have is for the person who has one income. Let's say right now there's a big recession and 30% of the people lose their jobs and get laid off. So 30% of my tenants stop paying their rent. I still don't have to go back to work. I've invested in such a way that half my rents cannot come in and I still am cash flow positive. I'm also house hacking living for free. I have the reserves to last years without any issues. I want Jeremiah to be in the same position. I'm trying to get each one of you in the same position. And there will be somebody who didn't make it this far in the video, that at the beginning of this video, I talked about the whiny little complainers. I also took the time to explain I understand why they're in that position and how much life sucks. But somebody is going to watch this, take action, and in a decade, and not only that, I've been doing this since 2021. There are people who are on year 2 or 3 of this method, seeing the changes. There's the Curtises out there on their second house hack, thinking, how do I get into the next one? Right? You're just in that beginning couple of years. It's worth it. The rest of this video is going to be dedicated to the questions, which I will get to all of them as much as I can. And my computer has issues. I see we have super chats coming in here. One from Damiola. Howdy. What if he had to care for his parents? That is a great question. There are people that are amazing, and she didn't give me permission to use her name, but she's in the chat today, but has their parents living with them. I offered my dad to move in with me to help take care of him. It's very expensive to have parents like that. It's very expensive to have kids like that. It's easier to house hack if you're taking care of your parents. Right? If you're going to take care of your parents, imagine trying to buy a house that was large enough for them, or you're renting a place that's large enough for you and your parents, or you buy a place. And when I say house with an ADU, everybody's brain, again, no declarative statements, most people's brains think of current ADUs, right? We watched Derek, that ADU guy, who has great information on how to build an ADU. So when we think ADU, accessory dwelling unit, other people, it's auxiliary dwelling unit, granny flat, mother-in-law house, whatever you think of that second home is, people are thinking, well, it's got to be 1,200 square feet. It's got to be in the back of the house. It's got to be smaller than the main house. That's for building. There are houses with ADUs where it's a 5-bedroom house next to a 6-bedroom house on one property that homeowners don't want to buy because they don't want tenants, and investors miss because they're looking for this magic word called small multifamily, and that doesn't hit ADU, TADU, JADU, or DADU, accessory dwelling unit, auxiliary dwelling unit, granny flat, mother-in-law house, all the colloquialisms that can refer to 2 houses on one property. I had a search set up for ADU, all of the words I just used, and I purchased a house with a duplex. One of them is the ADU and one isn't. The house is, I think, 2,200 square feet with a huge garage, and the duplex is 2 bedroom, 1 bath units, fenced yards, which I never would have found if I did what all the investors do and was looking for small multifamily. It is easier to take care of your parents if you are reducing or eliminating your probably still largest expense, housing. So it's a good question, and there's a lot of people in that position. I tried to be, but someday when I have had too much of the water that makes my eyes water, I will share the house hack version that my dad did in the last 5 to 10 years of his life. Uh, we house hacked when we were kids. I just didn't know it. Not in the right way, not in the legal way, but that's how we did it. It's a great question. I I feel bad when a younger person complains about how hard it is because we have thought it was hard every year since I was born. In other words, everybody would be doing everything easy and nothing was ever easy. It's challenging now. I get it. Doesn't mean it was easier before. So when somebody is young and they say it's challenging, I think, okay, if I can grab a hold of their little brain meat and change their thoughts, they can have a better future. When somebody reaches out and they say, I'm 70, I have nothing saved for retirement, my social security is only $700 or $800 a month because I never made a lot of money. How do I invest to retire? It sucks sometimes to have to be honest with people. The person taking care of their parents failed at the one thing I told Jeremiah was the most important thing. Your parents failed. If you have to take care of them, person who's in the comments and they're living with you and you can help take care of them, you're an awesome person. But they have utterly failed. I'm trying to stop the people watching now from utterly failing your kids so they don't have to take care of you. Olivia makes a good point here. That's one of the best house hacks. I'm living with my elderly father, helping out in exchange for no rent, save those monies and buy a rental. I love it. And then I saw Matt did a super chat. Howdy, Matt. Appreciate that. Appreciate the support. I mean, Dion is crushing it right now and still devilishly handsome, slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Yes, that is one of our favorite range statements uh, that we, and Matt does often, relate somehow to real estate. I love it. Bill says, I can't make the live today, but thanks to Dion, I'm having an open house tonight for my rental and thumbs up. Awesome. Congratulations, Bill, in Futureland. Let me know how that open house went. That is how I save time when I have a tenant turnover. So you list a property to rent, and then a bunch of people are going to go on. So I use Hemlane, which puts it on Zillow, Apartments, Trulia, Hotpads, like all the 30 different platforms. And so you get a lot of interest on a property, and not everybody's qualified. So imagine if you took time every day to drive to your property and show it, or paid somebody to go show it, and they weren't qualified. So I don't like to show it unless they filled out an application and show me that they are qualified. Meet my credit score requirements, meet my eviction history requirements. Maybe in some people's cases, they don't want a criminal background. I don't care, I don't check. And because I think everybody watching and me and everybody in the world is a felon. We just haven't gotten caught, all of us. Uh, and I can honestly say things like, I have not been arrested in the United States. Those are great for mixing things in. So I don't go show the property to everybody who inquires. If somebody fills out an application and pays the fee, I'll often go and do a showing. But what I do is an open house version, like Bill said. And so even sometimes people fill out an application showing, I say, great, thank you for your application. Nothing looks like a problem. I will be at the property this time to this time and this time to this time. Like I'll set up 2 open houses, usually 3 to 4 days in the future. If a tenant is in a serious rush to get into your property, you don't want them. So 3 to 4 days in the future to go and look at the property. And in that time period, every inquiry that comes in, I will say, I will be at the property from this time to this time. You're welcome to stop by. It's an open house format. I'll sometimes follow up with, there might be other people there to check out the property. Saves you time. It has a psychological effect where some people said, this really looks like you're just trying to create demand for your unit. Oh, you mean it's a business? Old guy REI, howdy Frank. We can get started now. Steve, first time joining live. Hope you're still here. Hit the like button. Every time you hit the like button, an angel gets its wings. Brought to you by your friendly atheist. CJ, howdy. Howdy, everyone. Been a while since I've made one of these before Dion hits go. Nice. PE turned RE, talking about Curtis and his second house hack. Best time to invest was yesterday. Next best time is today. Yes, that's the tree proverb, right? Howdy, Chester, REI Jared, Dividend Dave, Native to Earth. Good to see everybody. The Riley Oak. Lavita, thank you so much for trying to join. There you go. That was the live stream. The van confessions are great. Major technical issues. I had them starting today. Zuber's had them a couple. So YouTube changed this thing where if you want to go live on your phone now, it doesn't let you do horizontal, which is the way I prefer to present. I don't like being controlled. Okay, Jared, I started investing at 50 and Frank even older. Never too late. So true. Exactly. It's people, it's as we get older, I think we start to realize the next decade is going to happen. When you're 20 or 30, you feel like, oh, 40 is forever from now. When you're 40, you think, 50 is right around the corner. Arod REI. With the market shifting now to a buyer's market, could you explain how you make your disrespectful offers, what you follow up likes, etc.? That's a great question. And how I purchased my last property is because I looked for the buyer's markets because investors hadn't caught on yet. And so the buyer's market, there's a math that everybody follows. When there's enough units for sale and not enough demand, it becomes a buyer's market because there's not as much competition for the larger supply, right? That's the supply and demand of it. But how I did it is I expanded my market out to where remote workers were starting to move, right? Remote workers can be 35, 45 minutes further from work because they're only going in once or twice a week instead of 5 days if they go in at all. They're still close, so they can go to the office, but they don't have to commute in all the time. So the renting out 35, 40 minutes further, rents pushed up, but prices didn't because they don't want to buy. What if their boss calls them back to the office next year permanently? So rental demand pushed up in markets. I went out, kind of to me, the buyer's market. Not as much demand as there was for supply because the other investors weren't tracking what was going on with rents. I purchased a unit, a rental, and because my tenant watches my show, I'm going to let him know this is how you were impacted by this. 3 years ago, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath in this location would have rented for probably $1,300. At the 2125 I listed it at, there was a ton of demand. I got several applications, and prices weren't pushed up. Then I looked at the disrespectful offer thing. So I changed my search. First, I started looking, I learned this from Zuber and a couple of other people. I was doubling or tripling days on market. And I was thinking, okay, so if average days on market in my area per Beth Traverso, right, one of the best top rated agents in Washington State, probably more than that, but I don't know the agent stuff because I'm not a real estate agent. Long list of reasons why I'm not. But she's super smart. She knows what she's doing. She's been investing longer. She has a bigger portfolio, and she's a real estate agent with a lot of success. So when she speaks, I kind of listen and take notes. Average days on market in my area is 6 to 9 days. So originally I thought, okay, longer than 20 days, that's double. 30 days is triple. So I started looking at those. So I was watching to be in the real buyer's market of stuff that sat longer than normal. And then I heard somebody saying, if a property in most of the what are they called, brokerages that list properties in my area, list them for 90 days, you put it on, it'll be there for 90 days. So if it's on longer than 90 days, it means it's been reposted. So I set my search to 91 days. And I found properties in Kitsap and Mason counties. The two markets that I chose out of the 11 that I found when I expanded my market out, I chose those two because the prices and rent seemed to make the most sense. But I found properties that were are on the market longer than 100 days. One was because the owner had re-signed new leases. Rents would have been 1,800 each unit. They signed a lease at 15 and 1250. I think those numbers are right. And I shared this with Frank. He should know the numbers too, for a year. So it was new leases, lower amount. Deal didn't make sense at the number they were asking, so it had been listed for a long time. Then I looked at the other one that I'm in. It needed a lot of work because it's my first BRRRR. It was one unit was okay, livable, and the other one needed a lot of work. I ended up pretty much doing both units. So this one was listed for 500. That one was listed for originally 460. I offered 403 and 400 dropped to 390 later. So I got 2 offers accepted. at basically 80% of what their list price was. Now, it had been listed a long time. So if somebody puts an offer, puts a property on the market, and everyone in the world is screaming, it's a seller's or it's a buyer's market, you don't make a low offer on the first day a listing comes out. You'll just irritate your agent and waste their time, unless it's clearly overvalued. You can make an offer just to kind of irritate the seller. But once it's been listed much longer than normal for your area, that's when you can start making, they call them disrespectful offers. I say realistic offers. This property at 500,000 didn't make a lot of sense with the amount of work that it needed, right? It's worth 500. It was probably going to take 50 to, I ended up spending 62, but it was going to take about 50 to fix. ARV is going to be around 700. So you're really close on margins there on not making a lot of profit for the amount of work it was going to take. But at 400 and still putting the 50, but ended up being 62 into it, now worth 7, I created a couple $100,000 in sweat equity. That's worth it for somebody who does the burn method. It's not worth it for me because I'm too lazy and I don't like this. Never doing this again. That was great. Maybe never speak of it again, except in every video. So I offered the 500 or the 400 on the $500 property, and I offered originally 400 on the 460, but later to 390. The number that made sense to me, I did not go, don't split the difference. Like if I wanted to pay 4, I offer 3 and let them talk me up to 4. I just, nope, 4 was what it was willing to make, 400. And then when I found out about the leases, 390 was what I was willing to pay on the other one, period. Now, if they'd come back and they said $2,000 or $3,000 more, I wasn't going to let a 30-year commitment for $3,000 cost me a deal. But that was it. I was going to go 400. If they came back at 410, I still wasn't going to take it. They counted at 477. I said, that's great. 400 is my number that works. Then, of course, they go, well, it's been on the market 147 days, and we just got another really good offer, so we need your best and final. It's 400. We went back and forth several times. I stuck to it because don't fall in love with the deal. If I got this for 400, it's a great deal. If I got it for 420, I don't know, I'd be so happy about it. It's still probably a great deal, but I wanted it at that price. So no matter what the negotiation was after that, unless it really became really nothing and they just wanted to feel like they got something, then I would have given it. They countered 477. I said 4. They said 444. I said 4. They said 422. They were into some weird even numbers thing. And I said 4. And then I pulled my offer because the 390 accepted. They came back and they said they would take the 4. I looked at both deals. I didn't want both. I just picked the one that made the most sense to me, ended up here. So it's not disrespectful because there's a chain of logic to it. It was listed longer than normal. There's obviously a reason why nobody else is buying it. At this number, it makes sense to me. It's not just, oh, I want this number because it's much less than what you wanted. No, it's at this number, I'll be able to make the cash flow and the return that I want. So that's how I do that. Afro-capitalist, howdy, Levita. Howdy, my kids remind me every day how AI is going to take my job, need to get cash flowing quick. I totally agree. So as a CDL instructor, I spent the last 10 years plus trying to talk to people because so you talk to anybody that's not in the transportation industry and they'll say, well, what do they call them? It's not robot drivers or AI drivers. It's automated drivers are going to replace drivers. So why get a CDL if that's going to go away? And I said, well, yeah, it's a multi-decade thing where the first thing that's going to happen is Swift, Sierra England, Prime are all going to be hit because over the road, you're going to have one driver driving 6 trucks. Right? 6 trucks will follow that one driver, but they can't do intercity driving. So that'll be the first step. And that's probably 10 years from now. We'll have a decade of that. Then once the tech catches up, and we actually have GPS everywhere and a better computer system to run this. So in 20 to 30 years, now you're going to start to have intercity stuff. So you're right. Eventually, this freight industry can be seriously impacted by automated driving. What do you do for the next 30 years? Because that's where the work is. So whatever industry you're in, Levita, yes, it will probably be replaced eventually. But during the time between now and when it's replaced by AI, cheaper labor, whatever the replacement is, how do you make as much money as you can, reduce your expenses, save and invest the difference so that when your job is replaced, you don't care? Because right now, if artificial driving replaced every driver on the planet, I wouldn't be impacted, right? The drivers would go for retraining into some new career. It's kind of like somebody made a post today about universal basic income. Universal basic income. This is why there are people who say this might be great because you don't make a lot and an extra $1,000 a month would just like change a lot of things for you. And then there's really wealthy people. I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm not rich because I don't have millions in the bank, but I'm wealthy because I have time freedom. I have more money than I can spend coming in that I don't have to work for. But let's say everybody in Washington State or wherever you live starts getting an extra $1,000 a month. There's the same amount of rentals. It's not like $1,000 a month is going to mean people can go out and borrow $400,000 to build a house. So there's going to be just as much rental demand. But now your competition, when you go to put a rent out for that, other people will pay up to $1,000 more for your unit because more people have more money. So I'm sitting back here. I don't care about the $1,000 a month. I probably wouldn't even qualify because I own the assets, right? But each tenant now can pay $1,000 more a month. So I have 18 tenants. So instead of $1,000 more a month, I now make $18,000 more a month. Why do you think so many wealthy people vote for the left? Because inflation makes us stupid rich. Right? I talked about 30% home appreciation in the last couple of years. 30% home appreciation happened between 11 and 13, happened between 21 and 24, right? These are big jumps. And if you own the properties when that happens, that doesn't suck. Doesn't mean I want to vote left. Doesn't mean that I don't have a human and compassion. And I know that things like rent control make people homeless and make landlords richer. People's jobs are going to be replaced. We are a long ways off from people's homes being replaced. Every time you hit the like button, Dion adds more nap time. I would, except for there is an expansion coming out in World of Warcraft. So all the naps are gone for a month. Jim, howdy. Michelle, good to see you. Howdy. Don't live for GGIF. I live for TGITU. I'll have to hear you say that one. I changed TGIF from Thank God It's Friday to Thank God I'm Free. Nice. Josh, howdy. Afro-capitalist. Everyone advised his house hack, but his housing dead. Mortgage and rent are so far apart. Even if a house hack a duplex, it's not any more cheaper than a single family more often than it's not more monthly. True. And on that single family house in 2 years, when rent only goes up $100, you go up $100, but your duplex went up too. You're experiencing principal pay down. You're experiencing tax benefits. House hacking is not about reducing or eliminating your largest expense. That's what we talk about the most because it has the biggest impact. But we're talking about low down payment, owner-occupied lending, best interest rate possible, rinse and repeat, 10 limit cap on how many conventional loans you can have in your name, unless you're house hacking. There's no limit to that. You can have when Matt was investing, and I'm going to steal a part of your story here, but the lumberjack landlord was investing, and after 2008, when the crash happened, they reduced the number of mortgages you can have from 10 in your name down to 4. I was impacted by this a little bit because I was at 4 at that point in time. Couldn't get any more. He couldn't get any more. I couldn't get any more. Or I made a huge mistake and paid off a mortgage. Dumb. Don't do that. Unless your situation calls for it, because they're all different. So don't listen to a random guy on YouTube. In my situation, it was a mistake. But if you house hack, you can go up to the 9 house hacks that Matt did, even though they were limiting you to 4 mortgages in your name, because Matt's that freaking smart. So yes, Afro-capitalists, everyone suggests house hacking. And there are different ways. I house hacked before I was an investor to make it through the police academy, right? It was an hour away. It was 10 to 14 hours a day in the academy, and then 5 to 6 hours a day studying for whatever mock scenes or tests were going to be tomorrow. And so I'd sleep in the parking lot. Kind of hard to do that when you have kids, right? It's a little easier to do that when you rent a place out to your friends for free, so they can live in your house, as long as they provide live-in daycare for those nights you don't spend at home. TGIDD, there you go. Dividend Dave, sure. La Vita, there you go. That's where you said it was your. Sounds like the best house hack. I'm living with my elderly father, helping out in exchange for no rent. Save those dollars and buy a rental. Absolutely. Rob, I'm not willing to house hack. It's not required. House hacking is talked about by people like me that were talking to my friend Jeremiah. Right? I was making $50,000 or $60,000 a year with all the overtime and the side hustle. So I didn't have the money to invest in stocks or the time for compound interest to happen. I didn't have the ability to save the 20 or 25% down payments that Zuber's been doing with the one rental at a time strategy. He made a lot more. And so house hacking wasn't as big of a requirement. He's never done it. He does talk if he started over, he'd buy a fourplex and he would house hack. That's how he would start. Lovita, property taxes and insurance expenses creep up, but I increased my deductibles on the insurance and lowered the premium cost. Good job. I have a video. I have to look up the title, but it was something like 17 ways to make more money without increasing the rent. And one of those ways was to contact your insurance. First, shop for insurance for better rates. Second, raise your deductible. That lowers your premiums. That increases the amount of money you can save for the next investment. Ulysses, howdy, amazing video. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I much appreciate that. Rob Better said no one would house hack with you. Let the truth prevail. I think Mike would, so they could talk about getting shot at. Rob got boat syndrome at year 8. At year 8, I got Ford Raptor, Corvette, the Compensator, F-250, the Tundra, which I think was the best vehicle, is the Tundra. I cycled through all of the vehicles. I didn't retire yet, but I could have. REI Jared about, oh, my chat moved. Uh-oh. About 3 properties in 8 months, hoping the income snowball kicks in 4 or 5 years from now. It probably will. I think mine didn't kick in for a while because I had all of the worst debt to take care of and then the bad debt to handle. Got to be a reason why they don't sell vodka cokes in a bar. Levita, what do you think about being a renter and owning rentals versus house hacking? I owned a house, had a really bad debt to income ratio. Right? I've always been good about keeping custody of my kids in the house that I lived in. I've been good about keeping a girl around. So that should tell you all you need about me, right? Hard to be around. Because these stupid dad jokes you hear in these videos, they don't turn off. If me and my son get together, there's like a buzz of puns that almost breaks all the glass around us. I get it. There's a list of reasons why I'm single, and it's not only just choice. I moved from my house into an apartment and rented out the house. So not only do I think it's a good strategy for somebody who already owns, because that's what I did, I absolutely believe that I just interviewed, in an interview, I talked to a young couple, booked an hour of time, which you can do at diontalk.com, to go over their specific situation. And they're renting and they own a couple of rentals. It's a brilliant strategy, right? Grant Cardone talks about rent where you live, own where it makes sense, or something like that. Absolutely. I think it's a great strategy. I have rented while owning rental properties. I think it's a smart move. It can be a smart move. It's not always the best move. Late start wealth from Australia. They say they call it rent vesting. I have not heard that term. I love it. It's great. But I heard a term today that was amazing. Went to lunch with my daughter. There's a couple talking behind her. The couple talking behind her was talking about her husband. I'm so stealing that word. Have you been married? I'm a husband. Just many times, a few times. Freedom is the best part of being financially set. Jim, I totally agree. The freedom to do anything, not nothing. Sometimes anything is nothing, but it is the freedom to do anything. Native to Earth. I was going to buy crypto, but not today. But not today. Somebody asked me why that's not my videos anymore. Because I don't edit. These are just lives. I get more information out and I can answer more questions. And the point of retiring was not to create a job. YouTube, I am trying to help people. I am not trying to turn this into a job. And I don't think crypto is a bad investment. So it could be crypto, it could be stocks, it can be real estate. Your situation can dictate and your preferences which asset class is going to make the most sense to you. Lumberjack landlord is devilishly handsome, you must say. I totally agree. PE turned RE, turned 26 next month, and my future will be better due to Dion. That is the coolest thing ever. Thank you so much. You write the check out to the next person in line, Kurt. Pay it forward. Find the next person. Find that person that doesn't think it's possible. Maybe it's one of your students, right? Probably easier to get them to focus on what you're coaching than finances. But you're going to find somebody in the future that can benefit from what you've learned. Keep making your content, keep making your videos, share your experience. It's going to help somebody. Ulysses. Dion, I have close to 30,000 saved, enough to a 3% down payment on a 720,000 fourplex. Monthly payments are 5,600 a month. Rents are 12 to 15. Is it worth house hacking if I don't live for free? I didn't live for free in my first duplex. Wasn't even close. And the current rents are 12 to 15. What is the area average rent? So that would be the question, Ulysses. What are rents in the area, not what your leases are? And then I go a little bit below that, 5, maybe 10% to be super conservative, but a little bit below area average rents. How does it make sense then? My first duplex, I was paying every month to live there. When you move out, so let me do some quick math here. So payments are 5,600. Okay. And rents are 12 to 15. So we're going to say 1,500. So 15 times 4, 6,000. Mortgage is 5,600. Now you're going to set aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. So you're going to be losing some money every month, as this is a house hack with that rent. Can you look at that video where I said, here's how you increase your income without raising rents? Like, get a higher insurance premium. What is there that you can do? Could you build sheds on the property, rent the sheds with the units to get more rent? Is there, there's all these different ways to increase your income. You could actually, that's why I want to know where area average rents are. Let me see if I can look at the bottom in case you've answered. In case you're still here. Ulysses. I want to know what area average rents are, because that's what you go off of. I don't use current leases. I am not looking at, did my video freeze there for a second? That's weird. Sometimes YouTube just doesn't like me. Levita, what's in that soda? It's just soda. Well, it's not just soda, but there is soda in there. So based on if 1,500 was the most you can get, I don't know that I would do that deal. But how long has it been on the market? What's 720? List price, the number that matters to the seller. What interest rates are you getting? Can you buy down the rate? How does that impact it? There's a lot of things to go through. In our members only, which we're going to be doing, I believe, this Thursday evening, because we did the last one on the weekend. So this next one's going to be during the week. We look at deals like that. We break it down, because math is step one. Let's say we can get through the math and you could say, okay, I can pay this amount. The area average rents are this much. It's a good return. And while I live there, I might be paying some money, but when I move out, I'm going to be making some money. So this is great. It's a great deal. Now we go, okay, what are the physical aspects of the property? It's 4 units. How much parking is there? Is there room for 8 cars? 2 cars per unit? That'd be my preference. Is there other aspects of the area that is going to help limit tenant turnover? Is there washer dryer hookups in each unit? How many bedrooms per unit? Is there a garage per unit? Is there more space for more stuff? Is it pet friendly, right? Is there an area people could take their dogs for a walk? What's the crime in the area? Is it a flood zone? We literally go through the full, because math is just a step in the process of a lot of things to figure out if that's a deal worth pursuing or not. But I think the question was, if you don't live for free, yes, I would absolutely buy a house hack not living for free. Nolan, Dion, what is the yield number should be looking for when looking for an investment property? There's actually a very specific number, an exact number that you can look for. And I take this right. This is not me. Don't give me credit. This is Michael Zuber's right out of the book, One Rental at a Time. The market that you're investing in, you study it for 60 to 90 days. The asset class that you're investing in, right? So if you're a single family, house with ADU, small multifamily, trailer park, mobile home park, RV pads, whatever it is, the asset class in the market, you study it for 60 to 90 days, you learn what average is. Most deals are going to be bad and lose money, right? So about 80%, you just go, okay, I would never buy those. They're all just terrible. But there's going to be 20% that are pretty decent deals. This has been how the numbers work out for me. So I have around 20 that I look at out of 100. And I go, okay, what's the average yield on these properties? If it's a 3, I want to find a 4 or a 5. If it's an 8, I want to find a 9 or a 10, right? I want to beat the area average. That's a very specific number. So you need to know your market, your asset class, time to learn average of the deals that don't suck. And then this is the yield you look for. And again, I'll go right back to what I said just a few minutes ago. Math is step 1. So now I know my target yield. I have a list of things I want for my property. And this will be the Cliff Notes version. I want my yield. I was shooting for 10%. I want my properties more than 10 miles apart, so I'm pulling from different sources of tenants. I want side-by-side units because it means less noise complaints and one plumbing issue doesn't affect two tenants. I want to be close to several economic drivers. I want at least two bedrooms and a garage because more space equals more stuff, less likely to move. I want fenced yards because it's pet friendly. I want washer dryer hookups in the units because somebody using a laundromat or shared laundry is waiting for a place to open. This is all my list of things, right? I don't know that any one of my properties checked off every box. Right. I've got my fourplex. It got way better than the yield I was looking for. It's got the garages. It's got two bedrooms per unit. Doesn't have fenced yards. It's not super pet friendly. It's got washer dryer hookups. It is not in a great area. It's not in a war zone, but there is a bullet hole in my closet because this is not in a great area. I guess maybe it's a war zone. Depends on what your perception of war is. So start with yield, then go through your checklist. So I've looked at properties where the yield would be half what I was looking for. Right. I bought a property. It's actually the video that I use in my cash flow, how I run the numbers. And it would have lost money. It would have broke even, and setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy would have lost money. But the Ostrom's mushroom farm lost the lawsuit. It was moving out of the area. And within a year, rents doubled. Home prices, so 298 to 650. 100, 105, 110%. That's quite a significant increase in home values because I had legal insider trading of what was happening in the market. It checked off all these other boxes in Futureland. Late start wealth. If you only had 6,000 in a Roth as a first-time buyer, would you pull it out? 56 now and planning on house hacking 3 times by your time at 64-ish. So with only 6,000, I don't know that I would worry too much about fees, penalties, or anything that's going to happen there. It's when you start talking 50, 100,000, basically a life savings that you put at risk. Right? Your first couple of deals, you're probably going to make some mistakes. I wouldn't want to risk your home equity or a large retirement account on your mistakes. I would want to risk money that I've currently saved up. So it just sets me back to when I started saving. But if it's a house hack, sometimes even if it's not a Roth, your 401ks will let you pull out up to $15,000 penalty free to buy a house. And sometimes some people work at a place where you can do a $50,000 loan against your retirement accounts too for buying a house. So do I recommend pulling money out of retirement accounts to buy properties? Yes, but usually not in the first deal or 3. Right? Get your investing legs under you before you put that money to risk. But in the large scheme of things, I know this is going to seem really weird because there were times in my life where a $600 would have changed my entire month. $6,000 is not a lot when it comes to real estate. So if it is, I think I'd primarily focus on ways to increase your income and decrease your expenses before I worried about what to do with that $6,000. Dividend Dave with a dad joke. And normally I would not read dad jokes because I have plenty of my own, but Dave does a super chat and sometimes has better ones than I do. What do you call a canine who votes for Trump? A Republican. Nice. That's as close to politics as we'll come. Because if I talk politics or religion, I can piss off everybody. Come on, financial freedom journey. Howdy. Jonathan, howdy. Could you explain the member privilege for us all, please? Sure. So I want to interact with people on Zoom. Like right now, I would like to just go, hey, here's the Zoom link, put it in the chat, jump in. I should do that today. I might do that. I might do that today. Let me know if you want. I think that's stupid. But towards the end of this, I won't do that. But imagine if we were having this and the haters that have been blocked in my channel that watch just so they could dislike every video could get on Zoom and be as annoying as they want to be because I say there's not a crash coming. I have a video every year why there's not a crash coming. This year looks like commercial could crash, right? But residential, we don't have the adjustable rate loans. We don't have ninja loans. We don't have the excess supply. We don't have forced sellers. We don't have all these things that it would take to cause a crash. And so I make a members group where, yeah, the haters might jump in there someday. And not that I'm putting thoughts in your head if you're that creative, but it's like $2.99 or $4.99. There is no difference between the two, right? It's just What level of support do you want to show? So I'm totally fine with the cheaper ones. That's great. You can get in there. We jump in. The members only is specifically, we do at least 2 videos a month where all we do is look at deals. So YouTube works a very specific way. It's got what's called a click-through rate and then a view duration percentage. So how many people see your thumbnail and click on your video, it rates that and then promotes it to more people depending on how good or bad that number is. Then how long somebody watches your content. So the longer you're watching, the more support you're giving to the channel, because then it shares it with more people. It's how you get new subscribers, to get this information to more people. So the 2 metrics of YouTube I understand the most. There's a ton more past that. Which is why I watch Think Media and vidIQ. So if you want to grow a YouTube channel, those are the 2 that I use. But there's all of these concepts. But those 2 concepts right there is why I don't do the members only to the public. Because the members only videos, imagine if you were on YouTube and you're scrolling, you're looking for something to entertain because you got 20 minutes to kill and you're thinking, oh, I'll listen to this guy. He's done something I want to do. Maybe I can learn something. Or maybe he'll make a dad joke that makes me laugh. I doubt it. You never know. So you log in and it's us looking at an email on Zoom, talking about a market, talking about the economic drivers, talking about the floods. It's so boring. You'd click out and it would kill my YouTube channel. So I do that behind a members wall to keep out the haters, which I think I've done so far. So we can actually look at deals, and you can, because the process of what we do in those members is we learn something that it takes you about 30 to 90 seconds to open up your email listings from your agents with your auto searches, look at a property, understand the property type, the price, I've got 3 things that say immediately I'm not going to buy that property. Then I've got some other things that I like. So I can do that. And then I look at the price, the yields, the area, the market, all that stuff in less than a minute and a half. I know whether I want to pursue that property or dismiss it. To explain everything that happens in those 90 seconds takes 45 minutes. That's what the members are. So it usually goes on for an hour, twice a month. And I try to change them sometimes on the weekend, sometimes during the week, so that there's people who can make different ones. And then those videos are there in Futureland to be watched by anybody who wants to learn everyone's input on how they picked the property, how they picked a market, what they liked or didn't like about a property, things they would change on the inside to get a better rent increase that don't have a high expense. All of that happens in the members. The course videos, we go through the course, we teach business strategies, we look at specific portfolio development. That's a very different. Native to Earth, Dion, do you add your tenants on social media? I have a few that I've added, and would this get me sued? Don't sue me, bro. I try to be as honest as I can on YouTube because I'm trying to help you. I've added John because he's a truck driver, and he has a TikTok with crasser jokes than I make. But I wouldn't add a single female tenant. Call me sexist if you want. Yeah, I don't know. Don't know why. Something it's in the back of my head. I've added the guys tenants. I have couples that are friends on social media. So I put everything out on Facebook though, and social media. Like I've got shorts on Facebook from my videos. There is nobody who knows me. And my stuff on Facebook isn't like my friends can only see it. It's just public, right? I'm trying to get this information. I share the binder strategy. Like I've had tenants talk to me and say, I watched the video where you talked about our binder strategy and I heard our numbers and you're right. We're getting a better deal than if we got kicked out or moved to another place. So maybe be careful with that. Jim, love it when you call so security. Yep, that is definitely what it is. Jim, question. So what is your credit rating requirement for tenants and any other requirements? So really only have 2. So I have 2 criteria that are easy to articulate. And then I've got some that aren't easy to articulate. So the first one is no evictions ever. I don't care what the reason was. I don't care if it was in 1907. There's no excuse. If you've learned how to steal thousands of dollars from somebody else and live in their place for free, there's plenty of large companies with hundreds of units that can take the risk on that person. I don't need to. I only have 18 rentals, so I'm too small to do that. No evictions ever. Second thing is credit score, right? And when I say credit score, I often say a number because that's what we think of when we think of credit score. But credit score is credit history. So I generally want a 700 credit score, and that's Section 8 or non-Section 8, military, non-military, doesn't matter. I've taken lower with a cosigner or with a credit history that I understand, right? Significant medical expenses from 2 years ago. I get it. A divorce from a year ago. I'll work around as long as I look at credit history and I have articulable facts in their credit history that can make me justify or having a cosigner. And if I have a cosigner, it's a notarized signature. Right? I don't do cosigners in person or whatever. That's notarized. They will have the lease and sign it, have it notarized. So no evictions, credit score, including credit history, be human, and know your area, right? Millennial Mike invests in Gary, Indiana. If you have a 700 credit score, probably not a renter, right? There's your specific area. I have Section 8 tenants with an 831 credit score, so it could be all over the board. But here's the intangibles. I have rented and not rented to people based on their communication style. How long does it take to get a reply? What is the tone of the reply? Then, now I do a thing that's very specific that my brother does, and I wanted to clarify in a video that I made with him. He likes to go to the tenant's house to sign the first lease. I like to go to the tenant's house to sign the first lease. Now, he's a big redneck that has daydreams about fighting a bear with a 6-inch Bowie knife, right? But I am former law enforcement, as a Marine. I'm armed everywhere I go, good situational awareness. So when I go into somebody's house, I feel safe. Don't do that if you don't have those skills or the random violence that comes from being a redneck logger. But you can meet in a public area, your closest Starbucks or whatever coffee shop is close to you, where there's other people around. And when you meet the person, look at their car. How you do anything is how you do everything. So if you see somebody's car, they get out, trash falls out of the door, windshield's cracked, dents all over, this thing is rolling PC, maybe don't rent to that person. How you do anything is how you do everything. Now, an example, maybe not the trash falling out, but a car beat up with cracked windshield. If they have a credit history that explains, here's why I'm having struggles right now, but I'm coming out of it, I would be okay with that. That's my requirements. Geo, howdy. Can you talk about how you have your finances set up, bank accounts and spreadsheets? Also, can you talk about filing income taxes at the end of the year? Yes, I can. I can do that. So you can make this as complex or as simple as you want to. I have a long list of reasons why none of my properties are or ever will be in an LLC, because there's no benefit unless you have partners, no tax benefits, no legal protection, right? So all my properties are in my name. I have one. Now this is business, personal, rentals, me, all encompassing. I'm not saying anything per property or anything. I'm just saying all of it at once. One checking account, one saving account, one credit card that I pay off daily and use for cash back, one Excel spreadsheet that I give away for free in my binder course. So if you go to diontalk.com, take the free binder course, in there is the Excel spreadsheet that me and my CPA built together, has what they need, has what I need to run my business. It has a tab for income and a tab for expenses. Your area might require that you have a savings account for deposits that is separate from your other accounts, so know your local laws. That's the entire business setup. I have a CPA. I send the spreadsheet to, and I pay my taxes once a year. In a decade, I have still yet to pay a penny in rental income tax. I did pay quite a bit of W-2 taxes because the government hates people having a job. That's the whole business, as simple or as complex as you want it to be. Jim, time freedom, great statement. Thank you. Mr. Banks, I'm in Columbus, Ohio. I would like to see your process and analyze a deal in my area. That's what we do in the members only, Mr. Banks, is we look up the areas. I think we did Ohio one time for somebody. We've done different markets. I prefer to do other markets than my own. I'll do my own if nobody brings a deal that day. But I don't want to look at the ones in my area because I'll probably buy one and I don't want to buy anymore. Oculus. Coke is sponsoring Tuesday videos now. Yes, sure. That's Mexican Coke though, because it tastes better. Mick. Mac. Good afternoon, Dion. I'm listening from a rent a rental that I am prepping in California, 115 degrees today. My girlfriend is also listening from Denver. Thanks for the info today. That's awesome. Let me know how your rental goes. That's pretty cool. What part of California? I have so many people that say, I can't invest in California. It's too expensive or the laws suck. Well, get out of Silicon Valley. Get out of LA. There's tons of places where houses are $200,000 or $300,000 and the rents are $2,000 or $2,500. There are places in California that you can rent. And if it's in your own name, not in an LLC, you're not impacted by rent control. There are ways to invest in every state. Somebody is investing successfully there. Ivan, howdy. Howdy. You said you do this side hustle sometimes. Do you get the mortgage broker to look at that? If it's on your tax returns for 2 years, they'll often include certain amounts of income. My side hustles don't produce a lot, though. I do review cases for CDL accidents and FMCSA regulated hirings and make $1,000 or $1,500, but I do it 3 or 4 times a year. So that doesn't impact your ability to get a mortgage. The first 2 years are the hard part to get a mortgage because you matter. After you have rental income for 2 years, your income and your debt to income ratio really doesn't matter as much because now they can look at 75% of rents on the property you're purchasing included in your debt to income ratio. And as long as you're buying pretty good deals, it's never been an issue. Oculus, besides adding the closet, what are some of the things you've done to increase rents on your units? Add a bedroom. That's a great strategy. So that's to add a closet. I haven't added a bedroom, like add the square footage to a bedroom, but I have now in a couple cases. One was at a wall with a door, which turned a den into a bedroom. And I've got another unit on the other side of that duplex set up to this. I'm not going to do it while the tenant's there, but as soon as she moves away, I'm going to do that. Have another 3-bedroom unit there. I've added a closet to turn a 2 into a 3. I just added a closet to turn a 1 into a 2. So I do add closets to do that. When I lived in the fourplex, I added a shed, and a tenant asked me what I was doing, and I said, I'm adding a shed for my storage, and they said, would I do it for them? And I said, well, it cost me several $1,000s to build this. And they said, well, we're paying like $89 a month for our storage. We'd pay you $100 to have it here. And I was like, well, if you'll pay $100 a month and we'll put that in the lease, I'll build a shed. So a $3,300 shed, $100 a month increase, $1,200 a year, a $3,300 investment. It's like a 30% return on your money. I do that all day long. Call to negotiate a higher deductible on your insurance to increase that. I did do a whole video. I don't have it memorized. I had a list of 17 ways to make more money. The added space is a good one. Nothing else is coming to mind, but there's a ton of ways to make more money. The binder strategy is my go-to, right? Tenants ask you to raise the rent and then thank you when you agree. It's the weirdest thing. So increasing rents. What else have I done? So when I have a tenant turnover, I like to do a couple of really simple things. Put in better blinds, right? Rip out all the old metal looking things that were there when I bought them. Put in the faux wood from Lowe's or Home Depot. LVP flooring everywhere. Get rid of carpet. Usually, whenever possible. There's a couple times I go to have a tenant turnover and the carpet's 100%. So I just go, I'm gonna have this professionally cleaned and call it good. I replace electrical with the older stuff. Get rid of anything that's round or yellow and to make it bright white square. Updates it. I replace all the lights every time with LED lights. I get rid of anything that has a bulb. I don't want tenants changing light bulbs. So I put in LED, and then I put in coated locks. I do those kind of things. The more attentive you can make it look like you're going to take care of the place, the more likely you are to get good rents. I'm trying to think, there's something else I do to raise rents that people don't like. I allow pets. Allowing pets is not just about getting a pet fee, right? Don't call it a pet deposit. Even if you say, so here's the problem. A non-refundable pet deposit voids your entire lease. By definition, a deposit is refundable. So to call something non-refundable deposit means that it doesn't meet legal terminology and your entire lease becomes void. So don't do that. It is a pet fee or a pet deposit that they can get back. So I have pet fee and the monthly pet rent or pet fee. But that's not what it's about. It's hard to find a place that will let you rent with cats or large dogs. So you have demand on an even more limited supply of rentals than there are already limited supply of. So you can charge more rents by allowing pets. And then because you allow pets, you have less tenant turnover because it's really hard to find a place with pets. CJ, drop the Zoom. Definitely, I'll do that. I will do that at 5:30. Hey Siri, set an alarm for 5:30 p.m. Ulysses, thanks for answering your question. That is the purpose of these Tuesday Zooms meetings, is to answer those questions. So I appreciate the questions. Imagine how boring this would be if I did my intro, which is supposed to last 10 to 20 minutes, and today lasted like 30 because I want to help Jeremiah. And then I just sat here. I mean, I could get the guitar. Aloha, financial firefighter. I could bust into somewhere over the rainbow, done Hawaiian style. Ivan, Mr. Dion, I am buying to rent by the room in Fort Lauderdale. Thanks to Mr. Zuber, landlord, and you. Much appreciated. Awesome. Let us know how it goes. That is a great strategy. I don't think he makes content anymore, but he's pretty active on social media. There's a guy in Seattle who does rent by the room named Todd Baldwin, and he's pretty open and generous with his information on how he does that strategy. Some simple things that he does to limit tenant turnover, get the best rents, make the process as smooth as possible. Late start wealth. Thank you for the question. JR, where can one buy your course? And then I see BuzzTune, I think, put a link to it down there. You can buy the course there. And the course, what we do currently, and I don't know how long this will go on. I like it, which is usually an indicator that it will continue. But every other month, I'm a live Zoom every Tuesday after these lives. So like tonight at 6 o'clock, that's why we're going to end this here in like 15, 20 minutes. We do a course call where we jump in Zoom and we do portfolio deep dives. And the course is Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person. It is all the nuanced details of how I reach financial freedom, all of the sections broken down and how to find tenants, how to screen tenants, what matters, how the binder strategy works. Now, there's a free binder strategy course if you go to that link and you just go to diontalk.com, the binder course is free. As long as I can. That costs me like 10 grand to put together and $400 a month to maintain. But I'm doing that to just get the information out because the binder helps the landlords. And no kidding, the binder strategy helps the tenants. So since I'm helping both sides in that, I'm trying to not monetize that. Thanks for your great content. I have about 250,000 in cash, a paid off house, make 100,000 a year. I'm 44 with investment properties. Where would you start if you were me? Thank you. I would want to know what market you're in, where you invest, where you live, what you want retirement to look like. And so I don't know if I'm going to make this a video because let me know if you'd even watch this. So how video gamers can retire early. I have to work on the title. I don't think anybody would click on that because video gamers aren't looking at retirement videos. They're looking at when the next patch comes out. So if you start playing a game like World of Warcraft, I can relate it to chess too, right? You get the 3 stages of chess. You got the opening, you got mid, you got end, you got different strategies for each one, depending on what your opponent does. Is it an open game? Is it a closed game? What defense do they start with? Like all these things. Video games are the same way. If you start playing what's called an MMORPG, massive multiplayer online role-playing game, you have an end in mind. I want my character that I'm playing to end up in this position. My chess game, I'm best at ending open game chess, right? I'm just better with knights than bishops. So I try to structure a game that's going to entice my opponent to do certain things so I get an open end game. All that starts with the first move, right? Like if if they start with a certain assault and I open with a defense they aren't expecting, I'll direct their assault into what they want. If I'm playing a game like World of Warcraft and I want this ending and I figure out what path gets me to that ending and I start following that path, in order to go, how would you start? Is your goal retirement in 10 years? Is your goal generational wealth? Is because it's the largest portfolio with the most amount of cash flow? Is it the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units, right? How do I want to end tells me how do I start? So you have money saved up. So down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs, and reserves, you're getting this covered. Have you studied a market, picked a market? I would start with self-education and choosing that end goal. Once you know the end goal, or at least a fuzzy definition of what you're looking for. It doesn't have to be dialed in. Like for me, it was, I don't want to become a financial burden to my kids when I'm too old to work. turned into financial freedom. Wasn't the starting goal, but that happened because I had a fuzzy definition of what I was looking for. And that meant cash flowing assets that I don't have to actively like go to myself to manage. Because if I'm too old to work, I'm too old to go do this. So I've developed a self-managing strategy where I'm not the one going to the properties. Now I choose to, I have fun doing some of this stuff. Like one of the ways I only get to see my nephew is because he's one of my tenants. So I get to go see him and I do stuff at his house. Uh, I hope he doesn't watch my content because I don't want him to have the idea that I like him. It's family. Uh, 44 with no investment properties, I would definitely look at house hacking. No matter what the outcome is, everyone I know that invests, even Zuber, who never house hacked, says, I would start with house hacking. There's so many versions you can do. And even if it's just buying a house and not having roommates and not renting any of it out, but using an owner-occupied purchase to live in it for a year to get the best down payment, best interest rates, and then in a year turn it into a rental, or in 5 years turn it into a rental. Think with the end in mind when you start the beginning, and think of that first purchase of your home could be an investment. So vitamin triple E. I'm missing that vitamin E. There's a joke in there somewhere. I would need to know a lot more details to tell you where to start. Focus on house hack, but I'd list out what's my end goal, and then I'd be able to pick the path that gets me there. Michelle, I just got a HELOC approved. Come on, fourth property. Awesome. Well, what, Michelle, you know this, you know the answer to this. What are the two things that tell you you can buy? One, you're ready. And most people think ready means you got the HELOC or you got the cash, they got the 250 that vitamin E has. No, you're ready means you have the money for down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs, reserves, all that. That the HELOC can count for a lot of that. But you don't have anything big going on in your life, right? You're not having a baby. You're not getting divorced. You're not changing jobs. You don't have all this stuff that's going to take your focus off investing. So you are ready. You have studied your market. You just closed on 2 duplexes doing your 1031, right? You are ready. The next thing is you found a good deal. So if you got the approved for the HELOC, now you're looking for the deal. The thing that will determine you buying the property tomorrow or in 2 years is, did you find the deal? Oh, an Oculus may have a deal for you in Florida. There you go. That's okay, Michelle. It's perfect. There's an investors anonymous meeting at your local REI meetup. Thank you, Lumberjack. Deconstructing dreams. Nice. I spend my time deconstructing segways. 1.5 speed. I've been told that on double speed, I speak at the normal speed that everyone else does because I talk slow. As I take a long pause to find where I was in my chat. I wasn't aware LLCs provide no legal protection on rental properties. I feel scammed by my lawyer. You will be. Imagine this, King Nick. Howdy. I have a video on my channel called LLC Rant. Check it out. There are times, I'll start with this. There are times it makes sense to have an LLC. If you have partners that aren't your spouse, different entities that own the entity, you now have a level of asset protection because a limited liability company is designed to limit you from someone else's mistakes. A limited liability company does not limit you from your mistakes. So when you are sued, your LLCs are at risk because they are your assets. There is no separation. There is a lot of people for the last 20 years talked about the piercing the veil. If you do anything wrong, commingle finances, set it up wrong, do all these things, they can pierce the veil. That's not what they do. In the now 3 counties that I invest, they don't do that. They disregard the entities. They use the 1996 IRS precedents of saying all single member, which is you and your spouse, sole proprietor LLCs are disregarded entities. That's what they're called when you file your taxes. That's why there's no tax benefits. And that's why there's no legal protection. But your attorney and your CPA, who get paid to set them up, maintain them, and file taxes on each one and can charge you more for doing it. So shocking that they recommend you have them. That will be the shortest LLC rant that I do because I do have a whole video on it. So King Nick, please check it out. But if you have partners or what is the other thing? Or your lending can require it. So if you're doing hard money, sometimes DSCR loans, the lenders can say, well, it's got to be in an LLC, meaning you can't house hack it. You can't use the benefit of your rent in the house hack. Several other things that you lose the benefit to. Insurance is going to cost more. You're more likely to be, I lied. I can't stop talking about LLCs. You're more likely to be sued because LLC is a company. Companies have deeper pockets than a person does. So I'm going to read to another comment so I can change it. Jim, thank you, Dion, for sharing your wisdom. Much appreciated. You are the boss, man. I am now going to answer this question, and then I'm going to put the Zoom in the chat. So everybody can jump in and see each other's faces. And if anybody says anything rude, get blocked from the channel. So there's like 5 moderators here tonight, so somebody will block you. Late start wealth. If you can be rude to me, that's totally fine. Call me whatever you want. If you're rude to someone else here, somebody else putting their face on YouTube, taking that risk, then you're blocked from the channel. When you buy a new property with carpet in the bedroom, if it is empty, would you automatically replace the carpet? I have almost every time, unless it looks new and a professional cleaning, because carpet is gross. I've switched out carpets. If you've ever switched out carpets and you've seen what's under it, even on a clean looking carpet, you want to switch it too. So I have, let me see if I've had tenant turnover where I've left carpet. So no, I wouldn't do it every time. I do it almost every time, right? The less a person makes declarative statements, the less apt they are to look foolish in retrospect or something like that, Tarantino. But no. Rich, what about a fireplace or wood stove? Do you allow tenants to use them? The counties where I invest don't unless under emergency conditions. Fireplaces, I put a metal grate in front to like a design. Wood stoves, I do have one with a wood stove. It was in there until last year. The tenant asked to have it taken out, so I took it out. Roofing company did the patch. I found my new drywall guys that are amazing and have done they've added 2 closets. They did the drywall on this wall when I framed the closet that I did legally with a permit. If you're watching, city I live in. No. So now I'm going to share the Zoom in the link. You are welcome to jump in if you want to, and everybody can just say hello, and we'll see how this goes, because this is usually a really horrible idea on YouTube. Jump in because we got about 5 minutes, and then this will be wrapping up. Jared, Frank, good. So we've got some nice people jumping in first.
I don't know about that. I've been talking to Mark, financial firefighter, too much.
He does have a way about him, that's for sure. Yeah. I see Michelle. Hey, and you got your camera on. That was like the mistake you made the other day. CJ, howdy.
Yeah.
Great. Good. So we've got some. Okay, there we go. So this is kind of what the members is like. There's usually a few more people, and we look at deals. So we will wrap this up by saying, is there a deal somebody wants us to look at? Is anybody currently looking at something you wouldn't mind sharing?
I can give you a deal I'm looking at.
So if you want to put it in the chat.
Well, yeah,
so this is kind of what the members is like. There's usually howdy. And if anybody gets feedback, I will mute you. You are welcome to unmute if you want to say something. Anybody is welcome to talk here. I figure we're an hour and a half into a live. Anybody finding this video new is just going to be confused that they see a bunch of people on screen. Here we go.
So I already ran the numbers on it. Curious how you might do it though. Just curious or what other people think.
Okay, so first what I'm going to do is share my screen. If I can figure out how to do this, because my computer's smarter than I am. Hide all of the porn channels in the background. There we go. Okay. I'm looking at the right one, CJ?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
All right. So here's what we do in the members only, right? Even you, with your first statement was, I want to see how you run the numbers on this. That's not where we start. It's almost the least important factor, right? So you've studied your market, you know your asset class, and you will recognize when a price is really high or really low. So your brain will instantly tell me I should look at this or not. And I'll use the education of the tactic of don't dismiss something because it has a high price. right? Even in one of my first lives where we were doing this in the members, I saw one and I said, well, this would be a terrible deal. It's a triplex. This price is so much. I mean, unless everything was like a 5-bedroom unit, this would be a terrible deal. We look in the deal. It's 2 5-bedroom units and a 4-bedroom unit. So price was high. Brain wanted to dismiss it, but I was like, okay, I'm going to look in. But I'm not doing the math right away. So I'm going to look. I don't even look at pictures. We generally go from left to right, top to bottom. You know this area.
Yeah.
You should know. I know in Tacoma, here's the blocks I avoid, the neighborhoods I avoid. I know in Tumwater, Washington, if it's anywhere close to 301 T Street, cops can't go there in pairs, right? So you just don't buy in certain areas. You'll know that immediately. So that's almost the first thing we look at. Then I look at bedroom count versus bathroom count. This tells me if I'm looking at this 6-bed, 3-bath, am I looking at a single family house, a duplex house with ADU, all that's kind of broken up that way. This is all, so far we're like 3 seconds into looking at a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll go down here. Owners, we look at square foot and age of building. Tenants don't. They have no idea what square footage is, right? Some probably know what it is, but it's not what they think of when they're looking at places for rent. They're looking at parking, distance to work or school, how many bedrooms. So the age of building, Frank, what does 1920 tell us?
It's old. We talked before about things like wiring, lead, asbestos.
Yep. So we could say it's old, right? So if you're in my market, I own one from 1921 and one from 1939. The rest are 1980 or newer. So to me, this would be old. If you're in the lumberjack landlords area, this is brand new. This is from last century. They don't even make buildings anymore, do they? Right? So it's got to be. So what do we look at? 1979, last year, you can use lead paint or asbestos. So we got to consider that in this. Doesn't mean it's a dismiss. It means consider that. When we're updates done, we're going to be looking at that as we go through. So I've considered that. Again, this is about 6 seconds in. What's special? All of this right here, made up BS that means almost nothing, but we can discern some facts from. So the first thing that you want to look for is the agent good or bad? Did they put anything in here that catches your eye? If they just go, agent is property owner, rare opportunity to own a 3-family home in Eastwood, additional income to pay your mortgage. So they're talking to a house hacker or something, but they're not putting in anything right here. What's it close to? What's the parking like? What neighborhood is it in? What school district does it go to? All the stuff that you would actually attract somebody. So this to me, even though the agent is the seller, I would think the doctor that operates on himself has a fool for a client. Everything that to me says, okay, this is probably not the best agent in the world. I probably have better, stronger negotiating position. 14 days means I'm not going to be able to do a too disrespectful of an offer. Now it's 14 days on Zillow. I generally don't use Zillow. I use the MLS. It's possible that it was on the MLS for 4 years and then just got picked up by Zillow, right? All of the properties that I've purchased didn't show up on Zillow until after I closed. Right. So that it's on Zillow, that doesn't tell me how many days it's been on the MLS. So I'll get that information when I submit my offer. They're at Keller Williams. Now that actually makes me think it might be a pretty decent agent. So I'm readjusting my evaluation of the way they worded this. Keller Williams has a really good training program right now. So, and this is just me as not an agent, so everybody can attack me all you want. If you're in EXP, you understand how pyramid schemes work, and you're an Amway person that's trying to get people in your downline. If you're at Keller Williams, you get so much good training that you go off to another place and do really well. For some reason, the Keller Williams people don't tend to stay too long, but they got a really good onboarding process. Then I'll look down here. I will generally look for where it tells me that there's no HOA. I'll make sure, because that's a deal killer for me. If it's an HOA, I'll just stop looking and just move on. So I don't see here that there's an HOA fee. Doesn't jump out at me. Tenants pay all utilities. That's a good thing because that possibly tells me that there's meters for each unit. So if they're paying all utilities, now that could mean that there's one meter they pay the owner, but they're paying it in their name. So I'll verify that too, because that can impact it. So everything that we've done so far really hasn't looked at math. And that's what, if you watch every BiggerPockets episode, even mine, what are people worried about? what'd you pay, what's your expenses, what's your profit, what's your cash on cash return. But all of this comes down to, it says own 3 houses, but now if I look at these buildings, this is what looks like a Frankenstein big house divided into 3 houses. So was it done legally? Was it done permitted? But these are things I'll consider down the line. Pictures, you can kind of look at them, but I don't generally go, okay, I think there's things I need to change or update because you have no idea how old these are. Or even if like this vanity looks like you probably want to put a new one in there because they only cost less than $200 and it's probably 150 bucks to have it installed. This could be from 10 years ago and it's a totally different one now. You never know when they're using photos. Why would they list a photo like this? That's some serious trim or baseboard.
Possibly a motivated seller.
Yeah, because I got so much stuff in there. When I'm technically going through the first glance through the photos, do I see washer dryer hookups? Right? That's what's going to matter to me here. So if I don't see them, then I'm going to want to go back to the listing. I'm going to scroll through because I want good parking. I want washer dryer hookups. I'm going to go here to the map. I am going to go satellite. And so it looks like you would probably have enough parking for 3 units here with whatever's going on in the back here. You're not going to really see that with Street View very much. But if I scroll out, this is the reason I go to the map. It's not so much the property. What do you know about that area? Good neighborhood, bad neighborhood. Is this the right side of the tracks, the wrong side of the tracks? And we're pretty far from water. I think we've looked at some. This is no, I don't think it just looks like someplace else we looked at. So good commute. You're close to several of the roads around you. Are you familiar with where's the industrial area for the city?
Yeah, there really isn't much of one. They're actually building a huge chip plant for Micron about 10 minutes north. It's like a multi-billion-dollar thing coming. It's in Clay, which is a little above North Syracuse, so that's going to be a big thing.
Okay. Yeah, they were doing that west of Phoenix too. Past Glendale, they were doing a big chip factory, basically putting in the infrastructure for a city to be the chip factory.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
So that's legal insider trading if you know that's coming, and if other people aren't tracking it.
Yeah, it's north.
So the one thing I would look at here, this looks highly populated, right? This area out here, if you're looking in this area, I would draw a circle about this far out in your search. There's going to be more people living in this area in the next 2 to 5 years than there is here. This is where everybody had to live because the work was central to the city. And now 54% of Americans have to work in the office. Sounds like a large number, right? That means 46% of Americans with a job don't have to work in the office. Remote work is a game changer. So you might actually see rents flatlining in this area for the next 5 years or so, and rents spiking up in a circle around this as people move further out and further out from the city. That doesn't mean this is not a good deal. I would project kind of flat rents for the next 2 to 3 years. And so this is how a members only would go. We would literally take 45 minutes to do this. Everybody's in Zoom and everyone can jump in because it's not just my opinion, right? We'll have Frank jump in with his contractor skills. We have people who are investing out of state, people who have bigger portfolios, people like Michelle who've done a 1031, something I haven't done. So they can talk about what they look for. And then people talk about Crime Spot and how to get their accurate flood information because some of the sources have an ulterior motive. And we go through all of that. And then we do the math. And we only do the math if we've looked at them. We'll do the math as a practice exercise, but as an investor, 99% of the time looking at this, I would have found reasons why I'm not going to go for it. Right now, you brought one that you're looking at, probably has a good price, probably in a good area, probably has some things to look at. So what I would do now, if you have a partner you want to help convince, I would go to BiggerPockets and become a pro member. And I don't work for BiggerPockets. I'm a teaching assistant for their boot camp, so I don't care if you're a member of there or not. It's just their math details is very pretty. You get spreadsheet, chart, pie chart, graph colors of profit and loss and all that. So if you're convincing a partner or a spouse that you want to buy a property, I would go to BiggerPockets. For me, since I'm not stupid, I mean single, since I am single, I use the CDS rental calculator app from Chandler David Smith. He's another YouTuber. I think he stopped making videos, but it's very easy. You put in the data. It's not very pretty looking. You just put in, this is my purchase price. This is my down payment, my all of the data that you can put in there, utilities, rents, all that, and it'll tell you, here's what your cash on cash return is. Here's what your monthly payments will be. And so it's uglier, but it's quick and it's on your phone. It's very simple to use. So we won't do that tonight, but that would be 40, because I got to wrap this up for the course video, but that would be a 45-minute example of what the membership thing is that we do twice a month. Cool. I want to appreciate everybody for jumping in here with Zoom. What I'm going to do on YouTube is say good evening to everybody. I hope you have a week full of awesome, because now in Zoom, we're going to talk about all the stuff that gets us sued. And now we're off of YouTube, and you can say whatever you want.